Okay, so that was a pretty tough episode to watch. Who still watches The Walking Dead? I've been a fan since day one, but I would not defend the show till the ends of the earth. I feel like when it has its highs, it is really up there as some top quality TV, and when it has its lows, it really can dip. Even though the ratings are constantly dipping and fluctuating all the time, I feel like the show still has a pretty solid viewership. So it'd be interesting to see out of you guys who still watches the show and what you think of it, especially if you've watched since day one. It'd just be interesting to see what you think about its current state. This episode itself, it was exhausting, tough to watch, because it was a little bit too long, but mostly because it's one of the most emotional episodes we've ever had to deal with on the show. Possibly the most emotional episode ever, and there's been a lot of them. So it was Carl's time to leave the show. We saw the aftermath of the walkabout, and let me just say, the acting between Chandler Riggs and Andrew Lincoln was fantastic. It was emotional, like it had powerful emotional weight to it, and so it should have. Carl is a long-running day one character. He's an Atlanta character that's been in the show since it started. Probably like the second biggest character in the show. I think saying goodbye to Carl as a character and even Chandler Riggs as the performer, it's hard to deal with. It's up there with like what happened with Glenn. I think we always just assumed, especially if you're a reader of the graphic novels, I'm not, I don't read them, I read up on them, but I mostly follow the TV show. So I think we always assumed it was always going to be Rick and Carl's story. Looking way back at season 3 when Laurie died and her dying words to Carl, how she told him that he was going to beat this world. And now it's come to this, and it just kind of feels like a waste. I mean, I guess looking at it now, that's kind of the point. I mean, if you're up to date on all your Walking Dead news, you know there was some controversy surrounding Chandler's exit from the show, and a few of the creative decisions made by a certain showrunner. I mean, the character of Carl and this journey that he has been on just could have been so much more. Jeffrey Dean Morgan recently spoke out in social media saying how one of the main reasons he joined the show was because he was such a fan of the graphic novel plotline that goes on between him and Carl, like the relationship that Carl and Negan have. And he was sorry that they only scratched the surface of that in this TV show, and he would have liked to have seen it become something more, like go into more depth with that part of the story. And I mean, it's a shame. Chandler Riggs, yeah, he's not the best actor of the show by a long shot, but I really think he's come into his own the past few seasons. And the last 2 episodes that he's been given here, like his exit, he really pulled through and delivered a good performance that was fitting to the character. Even though I think it's a bit of a mess that we have to say goodbye to the character anyway and all that, they did manage to give him a good send-off. It's just the fact that we had to watch him saying his goodbyes to a few of the key characters, most importantly Rick, but all of these scenes that took place down in the tunnels under Alexandria, which I really liked, by the way that they're sheltering from Negan and his grenade bombardment on the town. It just feels like kind of like an old war movie, the way they were hiding out in the tunnels and waiting for it to pass. I really liked that. But I mean, there's the fact that we were shown his last day in Alexandria before he tried to defend the town from Negan and led everyone to safety. Him spending time with Judith, his little sister, and taking selfies with her and doing things that ensured that she was going to remember him as she grew up. And then there was the passing of the hat, the sheriff's hat, which I think we all could have predicted was going to happen, but just watching it actually happen had much more of a effect on me than what I thought it would. He's written the letters too, which we haven't seen the contents of, but he's written one to Rick and Enid, and I guess we're going to still feel his presence in the show a little while going onwards because we need to see what those letters say. And not all of our characters have seen what's happened to Carl though. He was such a core part of the group, and there's definitely going to be repercussions when we see the characters that aren't present when they find out what's happened to him. What really got to me in this were just the goodbyes to Judith and the goodbyes to Rick and Michonne. And I mean, even though the show probably shouldn't have drawn it out quite as long as it did, it was a very drawn out goodbye. It hit me every single time. So well done, Chandler Riggs, for bringing this character to life in one of my favourite shows. You did a good job. And I think a lot of die-hard fans are going to be sorry to see you go. Hi, it is really warm in my house, so I'm going to lose the jacket. So even though this was quite a long episode, it didn't actually focus on all that much. The main focus was Carl and his exit from the show, and the only other event we really touched on was events at the Kingdom when we had Carol and Morgan infiltrating the streets to rescue King Ezekiel. And for the most part, I actually really liked how this was executed. It was quite interesting and exciting. I don't really know what's going on today with Carol and Morgan and their constantly conflicting morals and murderous decisions and choices, but I think they're both solid characters. I always have liked them. You've got Carol, who even though she's come back to her senses a bit lately, she has still got that part of her that is just cold, calculated killer, but she's got precision and she really gets stuff done. And then you've got Morgan, with his really sharp stick. And watching these two just silently wreck shop was really satisfying. They're like winter soldiers from Captain America. You could literally put these two into a country, they could go in, destabilise, assassinate, infiltrate, take down a government. You wouldn't even see them coming. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Morgan Carroll team up. And they did end up rescuing King Ezekiel after a bit of cat and mouse with one of Negan's lieutenant, Gavin. Not sure on the guy who plays Gavin, I don't know the actor's name, but he's always done a good job, and I was interested to see where his character would go, because out of all of the saviours and the bunch that they are, he just seemed like the best of a bad bunch. He seems like he could stay pretty cool, and he seems reasonable, and he's never done anything overtly cruel, except for, you know, I guess he's always kind of a dick because he's doing Negan's bidding. I thought maybe they could turn his character around and maybe have him join up with the good side, but that didn't ultimately happen. It just kind of, when it got down to it, he was going to continue being a dick. He made his choices, and he wasn't going to like let Ezekiel go or anything like that. He was standing by Negan solidly to the end, and he got killed by a kid, little Henry, stabbed right through the throat by another sharp stick, courtesy of Morgan's teachings. Not sure how that's going to pan out. To be honest, this is just like a classic thing Walking Dead does, where it's repetition of story beats we've seen before and morals, and I'm not really interested to see where they're going to take Henry's character. I mean, they could do something interesting with it, but it was just to reflect the fact that it was really easy to kill someone as a child, and it was reflecting back to when Carl shot the kid outside the prison back in season 3. But yeah, so kind of sorry to see Gavin go as well, but I still have a bit of satisfaction every time I see one of the saviours get taken out, and I hope we're going to see this pattern reoccur for this half of the season, gradually taking out the lieutenants in satisfying ways. Because Simon's pretty much Negan's right-hand man. He's got to be the next one that has a satisfying end. But yeah, that's about it from me. I did think this was a satisfying mid-season premiere and a good episode all around. It didn't focus on too much, but it was mainly saying goodbye to Carl and Chandler Riggs from the show, and I think they've made an emotional job of it. It's going to be interesting to see what repercussions this has and how it plays into the mental well-being and the actions that the characters take in the future. Overall, I'm going to give The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 9, Honor, a 4 out of 5. So feel free to leave your comments down below talking anything and everything about The Walking Dead, and this episode in particular, because it would be interesting to see your opinions on the whole Carl death scenario and what you think is going to happen to the show. And I'd like to know what your guys' thoughts on the show overall are, especially if you've watched from the beginning. I'll be back next week with my thoughts on the next episode, so thank you very much for watching, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.